It's gonna be weird because my phone has a video. How's it not gonna pop up only my video? Because you normally host these when we do video space.
Yeah, so we're live on StreamYard. I am hosting on TJD on my phone right now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, you love to see it.
Okay.
So pull up.
Bet. Oh, what is happening? Lifts, how you doing, sir? Welcome back.
Oh, dude, glad to be back. Thanks for playing the 20-minute intro set from the Excision Datsik concert. It reminded me of my college days. It was like, oh,
do you even rave, bro?
20-minute Excision intro, bro. Oh my god, dude, glad to be back, man. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Man, I guess there's a couple people here. Welcome everybody to Ink Tank episode number 38, where we've got some of the folks from the Futureverse community. We've got some of the folks from the FLUF World community. We got a lot of cool stuff to unravel post Space Mission Season 1 reward.
Yeah, this
the
is like
Rainbowtopia Surrealscapes.
this is the space mission debrief. You know what I mean? Like everyone's
Yep.
been in space. Mission number 1 accomplished. I'm like, all right, cadets, listen up. Here's what went down. No, but seriously, I think there was a lot of people saw the announcement. About the Surrealscapes airdrop. They had a lot of questions like, whoa, what's I think a lot of people saw the Futureverse Fluff World announcement. I think it was a couple weeks, maybe a month ago. Time is, a construct, whenever it happened. And so to see it kind of, I won't say like come to fruition or realized, I think, surprised a lot of people, but it's exciting. So we want to kind of dive into that and just kind of, this is a collaborative community space to introduce the Futureverse Fluff World community to the Doodles community and vice versa. So we're excited to have a bunch of folks here on the stage. We've invited people from the teams involved. We've invited people from the community as well. So we're excited. So if you are from the Fluff World Futureverse community team or from the Doodles community, please feel free to request, join us on the stage, and let's try to get as many people in here as possible. I don't know if I've ever said this in seriousness, like retweet the space, but like retweet the space. You know what I mean? Like, let's try to get people involved and get the word out there so we can educate as many people from both communities and have some fun while we're doing it. So, Tony, I feel like I've talked enough. So take it away.
Yeah. Yo, Captain, GM, Alex, how are you guys doing? Welcome to Ink Tank.
Hey, bro. Great intro and glad to be here. We're doing good. It's a kind of semi-fine day. Well, I want to say fine as an autumn day gets in Auckland, New Zealand. But the sun's kind of shining and there are not many clouds in the sky. So I'm looking good.
Oh, you're joining us from New Zealand? That's awesome. Love that.
Yeah. Pun intended. How does the future look?
It's, well, kind of cloudy, but bright on the other side. I think that's a description of the state of the world right now, isn't it?
Well, hey, that's why we're here on Twitter, Web3, the metaverse. We're not worried about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we live in Rainbowtopia today. It's a much happier place.
Yes. Awesome. Alex, what's going on? How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Likewise. Also in Auckland, New Zealand. Great to be tuning in from the future. Also, just great to be here in general. I always had a lot of respect for Doodles community. It's great to see, this journey that we've all been on for, what is it? I mean, time is a construct, as you said before. 3 years, 30 years, I don't know. But to kind of see us all, we've all been kind of putting in the hard yards through bear and bull alike, and to see it all start to come together where, I mean, for me, this is quite a beautiful moment, because I think there's a common misconception in the space that, projects like Fluff World or, Doodles or Bored Ape Yacht Club or Artifact or whoever are competitors. And I don't see it that way personally. I think in general, we all very much have a similar vision for what we want the future of the space to be and what we want the future of the internet to be in terms of self-custody, decentralization, democratization, empowerment of creators. And, we're all going on that journey together. So I think really this is quite a kind of watershed moment in terms of starting to bring some of these leading communities together to build this shared vision.
Dude, no, that's great to hear that. And, I've had some buddies in the space who have been a part of Futureverse for a while. And it's funny, I've kind of peripherally tracked it. And I always felt like there was probably more in common between Futureverse and Fluff World and Doodles than there is in a difference. In a way, I think this is kind of what, we'll dive into tonight. But I feel like in a way, they're almost like spiritually similar in the way that they have these big, big brand relationships, big name moments, huge media moments, and probably don't get enough credit for any of it either. So.
The journey is kind of, I think you're right. It's similar in some ways, and the vibe is definitely there. Like, I think, out of all the communities we've interacted through this process, you guys have been like super chill and enthusiastic and kind of creative, and it felt like kind of working with a friend through this process. And so I'm glad we're here finally out in the public and can kind of really help to join the dots between that shared mission, like Alex said, to kind of get out there and reset the rules about how content and collaboration can work on the internet.
Awesome. And before
Amen, brother man.
Yeah, content and collaboration. We like those. But before we get too into the weeds, because I will easily do that, let's kind of back up a little bit. Let's do some just introductions. Maybe you both can introduce yourselves a little bit of your history, and maybe that kind of folds into what role you're in now and what is the company you're working for as well.
Yeah, man. So Aaron here, I founded Futureverse with my 4 co-founders. Probably started working on it about two years ago now. And we built Futureverse by acquiring and merging 11 different technology and content companies, including non-fungible labs who made FLUF World and all the other stuff that came out of the FLUF World ecosystem. And so been working in Web3 now since 2015. How long is that? Almost 9 years. And kind of just been really passionate about like making the space easier for people to onboard into and safer for brands and IP that we love to kind of come and join and bring their audiences with them. And really that's kind of the core mission of Futureverse, is how can we make the idea of the open metaverse real, go beyond the meme, which has kind of been heavily played in our space especially, and actually deliver on the promise.
Wow. Yeah, I imagine that's kind of a tall order, in the way that a lot of people can maybe, you're saying we want to make the open metaverse, a truly open metaverse, a safe place for brands to enter,
Yeah.
which is probably not the approach that a lot of people take, to be fair.
No.
They'll say, oh, hey, maybe I can create, and not that either approach is necessarily right or wrong, but like Doodles, for example, has taken the Doodleverse and they say, hey, brands can enter into the Doodleverse. The Doodleverse is the safe place. It's our own universe. So it's cool to hear that you guys are doing the open metaverse approach. I think that's incredibly important.
I think it's all part of the open metaverse if you think about it.
Fair.
Right way, and part of this collaboration, I guess, is demonstrating the power of that openness. And
so are we just introducing ourselves?
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. I told you I'd do it. I told you I would do it. Tony, why didn't you stop me? Why did you stop me?
What I was going to say, like, I don't know about you guys, but I bought into plenty of projects that wanted to build a metaverse, and I guess they're all just still building it, right?
Well, I think people misunderstand what.
Or it sounds like you're buying them.
Yeah. Well, we're doing that too. I think not to distract from maybe we can cover this after introductions, because I think it's probably important to set the table on what the open metaverse kind of conceptually means to us.
What are we
I think
talking
it's
about?
misunderstood.
So what are we talking about?
Oh, so I don't know, maybe we jump back to intros again.
Yeah. Let's jump back to intros. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, at this rate, I thought I'd be giving my intro at the end of the show.
No, it's a good topic, but let's do the formalities.
Yeah, we got too nerdy.
I know exactly where you were going with that, Aaron, as well. Something we've repeated countless times. So yeah, my name's Alex Mailer. I was the co-founder and CEO of Non-Fungible Labs, creators of FLUF World and many others. Prior to the roll up into Futureverse, I worked across a dozen different industries, from tech to entertainment, music, charities, and came back to New Zealand, started 2021, reconnected with an incredibly talented creative friend of mine called Jesse, and was fortunately introduced to Aaron and his vision for what we were doing at the time, which was essentially, just trying to push the boundaries of what people would expect from an NFT. Every NFT at the time was basically a static JPEG, and then they started to evolve as we introduced different levels of complexity, and we really wanted to just see how far we could push that bar. And then, Aaron's vision for everything that came after was just, he's playing 5D chess in space while we're all playing checkers. So since the merging of Futureverse, I've taken on the role of VP of Community. So yeah, I think in that role, looking at how we not only serve our existing community, but also expand both across Web3, but also, targeting normies. How do we onboard normies into everything we're building without necessarily having to educate them on how to set up a wallet and that sort of stuff as well? That's the long and short of it from my side.
So then I guess just like as from a post mergers and acquisitions point of view, how big is y'all's team right now?
Yeah, so there's around 250 of us in 16 countries around the world. Yeah.
Whoa!
So it's a decent sized team. And we've got kind of three core bits to the business. So there's these kind of underlying protocols for creating that interoperability later, predominantly dealing with things like identity, social graph, you kind of personal data that goes with your profile, and data about your assets. So kind of three protocols that deal with that stuff. In the middle of the business, we have our kind of content engineering team, and there's two bits to that. One is kind of pipelines to create these this idea of interoperability that everyone talks about, and these pipelines make it possible to have assets that can transport between engines and platforms and different kinds of client environments. And then we have the generative side. So we have about 20 people in our research and prototyping team that kind of build these next generation generative tools. So we have our own foundational models for generative music and sound, as well as generative 3D that connect to those interoperability pipelines. And then at the top end, we help a bunch of different global brands and IP to activate their content with these tools, as well as publish and create our own first-party content and experiences. So Third Kingdom is one of our own kind of first-party experiences and platforms. But then we have partners like Warner Brothers. We own the exclusive rights to Ready Player One franchise, for example. We work closely with big brands like Reebok or FIFA to kind of take their content and IP and audiences and start to create these kind of open experiences that we've been talking about earlier.
So it's safe to say that you're only tackling just a few nominal,
just
tiny problems.
Pretty niche.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that. It's kind of like just like I guess I think that's probably why the open metaverse hasn't really worked, is because to do it you have to have some kind of domain expertise across like 5 different complex domains, and they all have to like work with each other quite well to make that vision come to life. And so putting a team together that has all those bits of expertise has given us a little bit of a one-stop shop that maybe helps us progress that a bit faster.
Hey, we know a little something about vertically integrated, but I do want to give we have some other community members on the stage. I want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves as well. So let's kick it to Tybo first. So welcome to the stage, Tybo.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just been a long-standing community member since the FLUF World Mint, August 8, 2021. And then I think Aaron and Dave had this Delphi Digital podcast about Alter State Machine, and then that just put me down this rabbit hole ever since. And I've just been fully engaged. And I also run a co-space with Shay and Chilla called Root Radio, and we just keep everyone up to date and share speculation. That's me for now.
Awesome. Thanks,
We
Tybo.
do a little speculating over in these parts as well. Our tinfoil hats.
Hey, we relate. We're here every week doing the same thing. And it looks like your other co-host from Root Radio, Shay, is here as well. Shay, welcome to the stage.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. First of all, that intro was everything. That's how you start a spaces. Tybo, we got to step it up on Root Radio, take the production quality to the next level. But yeah, no, I'm Shay, founder and CEO of RNS, aka Root Name Service. Background is in Web2 marketing and comms. It's such an exciting time in the ecosystem. I've been a community member since 2021 as well, and now a builder on Root, building the naming service protocol for Root, and it's honestly been surreal. No pun intended. Just just seeing everything like come to fruition and seeing everything manifest. I'm also the former CMO of Walker Labs, which is an amazing team and the developer behind Open, and a really, really close partner, a Futureverse, and I led a mint in the brutal bear market of it raised 325 ETH, and like it's just been a crazy time, and it's been really cool to just see. It's really happy to see these two projects align. It's been really fun trading and acquiring some Doodles lands. I really, really love the vibe of the Doodles community. I mean, just even the way that you opened to this space, like it's my first time tuning into this space. Like I think, yeah, I'm just really excited to see kind of these two like vibes and cultures mesh. And yeah, just a really exciting early time for the ecosystem. Aaron and Alex and the whole team have been so supportive, and so excited to be building on Root, launching RNS very, very soon. Have my eye on a Doodle, and yeah, just the Futureverse is really, really bright, and just really looking forward to vibing with the Doodles community some more. And thanks for having us up.
Of course.
Appreciate that, Shay. All I can say, I got to say this for our homie Roops, whether he's here or not. Paperhand's gonna regret it. That was good.
Oh my classic.
We're stacking.
Classic.
We're
Roops.
buying. We're not selling him.
Classic Roops. Looks like then we have Mr. Bildo Verde here as well. GM.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Longtime community member, very passionate about Futureverse. Also host a weekly spaces with a friend. Her name is Miss Gecko. We call it Bill and Geck's Excellent Adventure. She had found us through the Ready Player One announcement, and some of her community was really interested with what Futureverse was building. So spaces are kind of geared towards the education of everything that Futureverse is building. So if you guys are ever interested in learning more after the spaces, I'd encourage you to tune in. We're happy to always have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's kind of one of the many reasons we've gathered you all here today, is to kind of make, apparent things like that. So if people are interested in diving down the rabbit hole, they hear something today's space, they go, oh my gosh, like the open metaverse, that's crazy. Like I haven't thought about this in a while. I want to learn more. And this team is really working towards that. Then, follow everyone who's on stage today. I do kind of want to get back to Aaron to, like you said, kind of table set. So thank you everybody for joining us, by the way. But to kind of table set. So it kind of working our way backwards, right? Doodles got a drop of land for this thing called Third Kingdom. But I think to understand that a little bit better, we probably need to understand a little bit more about what is Futureverse, what is the Readyverse, what is Open, what is FLUF World, and maybe just kind of help us understand the ecosystem a little bit better. And we can work our way towards, where does Third Kingdom fit in?
Yeah, so I think probably the best way to think about that is at the base layer, kind of at the bottom of it all, is the root network, which is kind of where the protocols are anchored. And really that's about connecting the dots between content applications so that it makes it easy for things like game engines to understand the world in a uniform way, because that's kind of one of the big parts about interoperability that has not happened in Web3, is everyone builds things and builds their metadata in a different way, and it becomes hard to people to implement across different applications. Then you've got like Futureverse, which builds a bunch of tools. It's like a platform company building tools on top of that. And those tools are helping generate content and create applications that sit on top of that layer. And then we have the kind of collaborations at the content side of things. So Readyverse is probably one of our biggest public collaborations in terms of IP. So this is a partnership with the creator of Ready Player One, Ernie Klein, Dan Farrow, who produced the movie, and Warner Brothers Discovery, to take that story and that content and bring it to life and really kind of show the world that what Steven Spielberg put in that movie could be real. And the Readyverse, in terms of its core capabilities, has got kind of two bits to it. One is a platform that enables people who are creating applications and experiences and games and stuff to launch their content from. So think of it like a next generation version of Steam that is designed to work in this open and interoperable environment, and is friendly towards Web3 creators and friendly towards AIGC creators, and really can kind of enable that audience who loves the IP and Ready Player One to come and experience some of the cool things about open and interoperability. And then we have our kind of hero AAA gaming experience, which can be launched from the Readyverse, called Open. And Open is a AAA competitive battle royale format game, which is based on the stories and the lore of Ready Player One. If you think about the movie, the kind of core idea is this competitive battle royale format that exists in multiple biomes and with multiple formats, whether that's shooting or car racing or these kinds of things. So you've got kind of an end-to-end proposition there, from like core network through to creative tools, through to a launcher and marketplace, and then up to, you know, high quality AAA content as a top of funnel for gamers.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting to hear you describe it, because you use kind of broad language, because I imagine it is the open metaverse, and so it has to be fairly broad in the way you describe things. So just to kind of define a few terms here. So the root network, you said it was kind of a base platform. Is that a chain? Is it a blockchain?
Yeah, it's a layer one blockchain. And what we designed the root network for was to solve some of the problems that we've had with onboarding people into Web3. I think if you look at the statistics out there, they're pretty damning, in that, you know, there's probably 5% of the world's population who has engaged with crypto in some way, but less than 5% of those are actually doing stuff, you know, on a regular basis on chain. So there's a huge UX problem there to fix. So that's kind of one thing. And then the other thing is, if content's going to exist in a multi-chain environment, and we're kind of very big proponents that openness means multi-chain, there isn't kind of one winner in all of this. There needs to be a way to connect that content in a way that's understood by applications and games and experiences, so you can get that interoperability happening. So those are kind of two jobs of the root network, is kind of be a hub for interoperability for content-rich applications, and then solve that onboarding experience for new users coming into Web3.
So a rudimentary question there is
rudimentary.
Is there gas en route?
Yeah, actually, one of the really interesting things about root is that gas is probably one of the most annoying parts of an onboarding journey. And so what we've designed, and kind of getting very close to now demonstrating end to end, is this idea of the any token gas economy, where users can come in and experience an application, and maybe the application has its own token, and that's all they need to know. Or they can use their credit card, and that's all they need to know. And developers can either pay gas on behalf of users, or users can pay in their native token gas, and then the network automatically swaps that for the kind of core underlying gas module inside of the root network. So you've got this kind of situation where users can get into and start using Web3 without having to understand anything outside of the application they came through, which I think is kind of a big boon, I guess, for that onboarding experience, because that's where a lot of that journey breaks down for users. I'm not a massive fan of no gas networks, because at some point there has to be cash flows that generate value for people to
validate transactions,
to secure the network.
Secure the network. You know, if you don't have those cash flows coming through, at some point the hype will stop, and so the Ponzi will collapse. And so you have to kind of think, all over the world, through all time, infrastructure costs money, and if it doesn't cost money, then it's either not useful or, in this case, not secure.
Now, go ahead, Tony.
I just had 2 more follow-up questions. So one, you kind of touched on it. So will people be able to spin up root nodes in the future?
Can already. Yeah.
And is there like a foundation that governs it, or?
Yeah, there's a Futureverse. There's a root network foundation that governs the network itself, which is independent from Futureverse.
Okay.
And anyone can kind of spin up nodes now and to come and join the validator set. The on-chain governance is probably the last stage of decentralization. So we're kind of in the middle phases of that. Root's built on Substrate, which is the same technology that powers Polkadot. So we've taken that core Substrate base and then added, I think we're up to 19 custom runtimes on top of that to provide the interoperability and user experience stuff that we talked about earlier.
The irony of discussing the deep tokenomics and governance of a token that's trying to obfuscate the blockchain for user experience.
I know it's kind of an interesting thing, but at the same time, like, we don't see the world in a single color. Sure. There's a rainbow of user segments out there, and the people that are on this space are probably the ones that want to know that detail and dig into how things work under the hood, and they're the ones that will kind of, get to play the leading role, let's say, in the story in terms of that infrastructure and how it creates value. There'll be millions of users who don't care and probably won't even know that they're on the root network. And we're successful if that's the case.
No, fair point. Now, did you start this journey on another chain, and was there kind of problems you encountered, a reason you decided to form your own L1?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in the space for, like I said, I've been in Web3 since 2015, so I've kind of seen most of what's happened over that period. And I got really excited about the space when I saw Ethereum and, in particular, smart contracts. Like, Bitcoin was kind of interesting to me, but once I could see you could build applications, then I got really interested. I come from a tech background. I was an engineer in telecommunications space, and networks is my jam. And this was kind of quite a revolutionary idea. But when I started to look back at it back then, it was just so complicated. I just couldn't see that user experience propagating to everyday people, and no one was really thinking about it at the time either, and probably for good reasons. But we decided to start to look at it, and that's really where the Futureverse ecosystem came from. We started a incubator accelerator that started to invest in and venture build with companies who were trying to solve those usability problems. And then we kind of figured out, once we had the usability map, not problem solved, but at least knew where we were going, we started to think about how to bring users into the space, and that's where we jumped into content and started to kind of create content funnels for users, and those two things naturally collided in Futureverse. So I think there's a lot of good out there across a lot of chains within the space, and they're, each one has got their kind of niche that they're optimizing for. And the notion that you can have one kind of infrastructure that meets every kind of user need is a silly one. But what we didn't see was something that was really focused on this interoperability of content-rich applications. Like, how could you connect the dots between chains as opposed to trying to supplant them in this specific domain? And I think that's what the root network's all about.
That's awesome. That's super exciting. There was a word you just mentioned, which was another kind of term that I wanted to define, was content. You mentioned that Futureverse there's a platform for content, Rediverse. Apologies. Rediverse, is content. Open is content. Now, I think when a lot of people think about the open metaverse, they think about gaming, right? They kind of put it in a box, like it's a game or it's not a game. But I hear you said earlier, like telling the story of Ready Player One. When you say content, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think probably like stepping back a little bit to describe the metaverse is probably useful for us. So I think the first thing like to get the head around is that it's not something that's going to be. We're there already. You know, I think the average human will spend about 45 years of their life looking at a screen. And so this notion that there's this other world that we're going to be in at some stage is kind of silly. We already are there. And the metaverse is really a trend which started a long time ago, and it's a progression of the internet experience or the user experience online. And I think probably like a good example of framing out how we think about the metaverse is we think the metaverse is much more like WeChat and much less like Roblox. And that WeChat is this kind of immersive, converged user experience where I can go to a place and do all the things without these customer experience or technology silos. And probably the first time we really saw that happening, that convergence happening, was when, you know, before early on the internet, you'd have these silos. You'd have commerce, you'd have banking or finance, you'd have gaming, you'd have media, you'd have communications. You go to these different things to do them. And back in the day, I would be, you know, in the telecommunications game, we had separate networks from the media networks. That's how far apart things were. And then the internet comes along and those protocols start to converge at the network layer, and then we start to see it happen in the application layer. We saw communications and media smashed together in social media, and it obliterated both of those other industries and became like the default way that people started to communicate and share content. And that progression keeps going. You see TikTok doing the same thing, smashing commerce into social with social commerce. And that continued convergence of these different things into one user experience is like a core part of what the metaverse is. So the metaverse isn't about gaming. It's about taking the principles of gaming and applying them to everything we do. And like a really good example of that in our space is DeFi. DeFi is gamified finance. And so the principles of gaming apply to finance to incentivize communities to participate in protocols is really about the underlying idea of infrastructure in Web3. So it's a game that's being played at multiple levels as opposed to going to play a game discretely. And that if they put that kind of context around the metaverse, it's really just the internet growing up. Now, the immersive bit in terms of the content question is, I think over time, the internet naturally becomes a more immersive space. You know, we've seen a rise over time of people's default starting internet experience being a more immersive experience. So my kids spent more time in immersive worlds than I did because they're more available to them. And as those generations grow up, they're going to prefer immersive spaces. I think now already every day more people log into immersive experiences online than exist in the population of the United States. So this is something that's big already and growing. And things like AIGC are only going to make that acceleration faster, because when everyone thought the metaverse was going to be big, you know, a couple of years ago, what actually happened was intuitively in our minds, we're like, oh yeah, an immersive internet, that makes way more sense. And so everyone rushed towards it. But the technology wasn't quite there. And in particular, it costs a lot of money to build those things. You had to have specialist engineers that knew, you know, Unreal Engine or Unity or 3D engineering pipelines to make the stuff. And so there's this big wall of capability that hit against, you know, the big wall of hope and ideas. And so AIGC is starting to break down those walls, and now we can type into existence 3D environments and 3D characters and 3D objects. And every time on the internet where we've made tools available to users to create a certain kind of content, it becomes the kind of content that the internet exists on. You know, in the early days of of the internet, when I was installing dial-up networks, it was hard to get websites. You know, you had to know a programmer that could build them, and then tools came along, and we have WordPress and Wix and those kinds of things. And so now everyone had a website. And then social media came along, and everyone became a content creator and a content publisher. Mobile platforms came along, and you know, suddenly everyone could experience mobile applications and have the internet on the go. And this will happen again with immersive content now that we have the tools to democratize it and make it available to everyone. The default kind of internet experience in the future will be an immersive experience. And that's really what the metaverse is taking those two trends, convergence of customer experiences and breaking down of those silos between different things, and putting them inside more immersive experiences.
Now,
So,
well, I just want to
Go ahead,
follow up real quick. Does immersive, is that defined as something like that's like spatial computing, AR, VR, or just what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, I think it's a spectrum, you know, right from, if we take back to that TikTok example, TikTok commerce, so social commerce, is an immersive kind of commerce. Even if I look at it on my phone, on a screen, it's a more immersive version of commerce than going to a website and clicking through it. You've got that kind of social element and that live action interactions. And so you could start as, you know, far down the track as there, or go, you know, peer into the future and imagine these things being beamed into our brain through a Neuralink. You know, there's a spectrum there of what immersive will be, but there's no doubt that the way we experience the internet will become more and more immersive.
So you think immersive maybe from like the mode of marketing of commerce?
I think just the way people experience content. You know, like your content for shopping used to be going to a website and browsing, you know, like we did 20 years ago, but now it is almost interactive to the extent that there's a person potentially there who's selling in real time, and you're purchasing that stuff in real time as that person's selling.
You may have a parasocial relationship with that creator already.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the ground layer of what's really happening at internet scale on that journey of immersive convergence. But even if you kind of like take it more literally, you know, something like 60% or 65% of the people who in Roblox and Fortnite make their physical purchasing decisions based on what their digital avatars are wearing in those environments. And so that line between what is the real world, quote unquote, and what is the metaverse doesn't really exist anymore.
So you're saying you're long on Doodles 2 wearables?
Oh, I'm super long on anything wearables. In fact, we created a whole system to make wearables actually work as an interoperable thing. And so, you know, the swappables engine and asset register in Futureverse is kind of the ground, you know, kind of grounding technology that makes that kind of thing work in a fully interoperable way across different blockchains and between different kinds of characters. And so we're really long on wearables, and next phase of development is taking that a step further so that you can have the same digital item appear on any kind of body morph. We showed a little bit of that last week when I previewed the Bored Apes Unleashed experience that we've been building, and the UBF data standard for content that we've been building goes even one step further. You could have the same avatar appear in two different applications, one Unreal, one Unity, for example, and change the hat on your doodle in a third application. It would instantly appear in all three. So there's this persistent layer of reality that exists at the content, at the data layer for content that can be rendered in real time by any engine anywhere.
Love it. Love it. So I think we've kind of established the almost like what and why. I don't want to say that we've covered the breadth of the open metaverse, because that would, in this, you know, 20 minutes,
I mean,
you know, or so.
Liz, I'll sum it up.
We get
Art
it.
is a reflection of life. You know, if we're trying to build life online, it's going to have different things that we have in the real world. Fashion and shopping is going to be in there.
We progress as a human species, you know.
Totally.
But I do want to kind of bring this down to earth a little bit, because, you know, you talked about how you can you're telling the Ready Player One story through open and Readyverse, but your first part of your approach is Third Kingdom, right? So let's talk about, what is Third Kingdom to you?
Yeah. So Third Kingdom's two things. I think, well, maybe three things. One is it's a chance for us to show how communities can come together like this and kind of bring different people's assets and collectibles into a game context and have them kind of all play a role in the strategy of that game. So Third Kingdom is a strategy simulation game. It's made to work with a whole bunch of collections, including Doodles, that we're bringing together to show how different communities can be a part of a game experience at one layer. The next thing is, it's kind of a competitive strategy simulation game. There's a big pot of, I think, 300 million up for grabs in season 1. So players can come in there, optimize their strategy, and compete for a share of those rewards. And then the third bit, probably the most important bit, is it's actually laying the ground for the work for this thing called the material world. So just like we talked about earlier, you know, interoperative for avatars or wearables or those kinds of things, we think materials that you know, exist in one game could be useful in another game. And so,
like ores and food. And
exactly. So every gamer goes, you know, through Game Studio goes through building these kind of very similar underlying materials inside of their environments. And especially independent studios, one of the big things you struggle with is getting bootstrapping, you know, liquidity and value for those things. And also, you know, attracting users. And so if you can create this underlying material world of objects and resources, then other people can tap into them and build in that metaverse of resources to attract users who might want to go and kind of use their stuff somewhere else, or to bootstrap the economy of their own game and give it some real value to start off with.
Oh, that's
wow.
No, that's really interesting, because we're seeing, like right now, we're seeing with Blast, right? Blast is incentivizing with Blast Golden Points, and new apps or new dApps are able to kind of overcome that cold start problem, right? They go, hey, we're doing a thing and we're giving away Blast Gold, and everyone's like, okay, let's try it. Like, it's you're saying that could occur with, you know, metaverse universes. Things say, oh, hey, you can use those resources that you got from over there, and there's maybe a pot of resources available to those who come over first, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea behind Third Kingdom is to create this fun, engaging game that is like built around being a great game to play, but casually while you're playing that, you're actually creating this material world for others to build on top of.
So again, just to point to like this idea of open, persistent metaverse, to make sure I understand it and maybe the audience does. So let's say we're talking about like Halo or Call of Duty. You go play a game of team deathmatch. It lasts for like a certain amount of kills or a certain amount of time, and then the map gets wiped. You start again, and it's just like a wiped version of it clean. But the persistent metaverse is the idea that like it's always on, and it is ever changing by whoever was there before you. Yeah.
So that, and a lot of people, I think, in the past have thought about that in the context of a single application, and they think, you know, that generally the solution to solving for that problem space is to create one giant world where everything happens. And that can't happen practically, and it won't happen, you know, even socially, I don't think. You know, we're tribal people by nature. But
What was it? What was it? EverQuest, where you died once and it was like everything was gone. Live your whole life in game.
But I think where that can exist is in the data layer, and so so what we want to do is make sure that we create a data layer and an ontology of things and how they interact with each other, so that that data can remain persistent, and then applications can interpret that data in their own way. When I talked about earlier about that UVF, where I could be in application A and application B, but they both understand the same persistent reality by looking at that underlying data. Instead of having to send files around GLTFs or GLBs or VRMs or anything like that, every time a change is made, all you do is change the data, and the engines then render that data in real time. And so if you combine that plus what we're seeing to emerge with an AI-generated content, the only thing that's really going to be valuable is the data about myself, my experiences, my social graph, the things I love, because each time I go into a new application, it will render the environment of that application based on that data relative to what that environment is. And so you can kind of get that whole sense of world jumping happening and context changing happening without having to create one super app that does it all. You're going to have lots of builders building lots of applications, and they all connect to the same metaverse of interoperable data.
Well, and I, not ironically, like Ready Player One, the story in the movie is a good example of what you're asking, right? You're like, oh, can there be like a mini game within the game? There certainly can.
Because the game itself is the collection of applications as opposed to a single application. And I think talking to Ernie, who wrote the novels, at the time when he wrote them, this technology didn't exist. It was pre-Ethereum and smart contracts and NFTs and all this stuff. And so he imagined the world machine as being a singular application because that's all that was available at the time. And when he saw this technology come along, he was like, oh, that's the solution to the problem I had in my head. If he told the story of this corporate machine that was taking over the world and the fight for communities to come back and take control of it. And that is the story of Web3 before he even knew it. And that team, he had offers from the major tech companies to take that IP and to build, the bad version of it. And they said no. They waited until they found a partner who could bring it to life in a community-driven way. And we're really grateful and glad to be able to do that.
A metaverse market fit, if you will.
Yeah, totally.
I do want to recap kind of two things, and I have a question for Alex actually. So just some little pieces of alpha. So if you're into being super early, run a root node. But two, also this Surrealscapes land, start mining your resources. I know we've got a few threads and guides that have been floating out there on how to do that. So if you're a doodle who's held that land and you want to, start getting those resources that could be useful in this and other, metaverse experiences, start doing that now. But I want to kick the next question to Alex, because we're talking about, Doodles, FLUF World, the Futureverse community, and these communities combining. Alex, how do you think about kind of merging and, managing or whatever you want to call it, these communities, especially as more and more and more start to join the Futureverse and beyond?
It's a really good question, and it's honestly something that we see not even just across external communities, but even to an extent sometimes within our own ecosystem, because we have so many collections, that you often see this kind of tribalism pop up where it's an us versus them mindset, and it's something it's quite difficult to break out of. I think the original days of this industry were very much zero sum, in the sense that it's either we're winning or they're winning, but I believe, at least in terms of the approach that we're taking and really focusing on building the tools, building the infrastructure, building the platform that will allow or facilitate the onboarding of millions and millions, potentially billions in the future, really as the end goal. And those who are here now, those who are engaging now, those who have your Doodles, your FLUFs, your Party Bears, your whatever else, are really here as the super users. These are, if you're familiar with Roger's innovation curve, adoption curve, it's, these are the innovators, the early adopters, the people that before we bridge the gap, before we hit that tipping point, the ones that have, the level of knowledge that your average everyday person doesn't have when it comes to, sending an email. They don't need to understand all the protocols that go behind sending an email, but it's done so in a way using decentralization technology that allows these people to reap the benefits of being early across the way. So we've, for example, introduced future score quests as a ability to take our community and, whether they're the early supporters or whether they're the newcomers, to bring them on this journey with us, to give them a score based on both their level of ownership of collectibles, but also their level of engagement with various things that we do, and have them complete quests, which essentially involve testing out some of the new pieces of technology that come out. And it's worked really well because it's a really gamified, simple solution for us to, simple on the user end, very complex in the background, but really great mechanic for us rolling out root rewards to the community, ensuring that they are actually doing something that gives us value back by helping us mass test and ensure that, all of these different pieces that we're building are fit for purpose and are robust before we start to scale them out further. And then from there, continue to grow and adapt and bring in newcomers. So I guess to your original question of, how do we continue to bridge the gaps between these communities? It's, I think, honestly, in part, is literally spaces like this and projects like what we're doing with the Third Kingdom, which show that, we have more in common than differences, and that there is mechanics in place that we can all play together, we can all win together, and we can drive the entire industry together to a point that it's ready to start, onboarding normies, and then we get to kind of be the ones that see the magic that goes on in the background while your average everyday user just does the thing.
I think I can sum that up in a little bit of
go for it.
The thing that we're all fighting for in Web3 and kind of grounded on, why would you build in this technology, has been grounded in this notion of ownership, right? Whether it's your digital assets or your digital content, that's the whole point of building in this space. And what has happened is we've focused so much on ownership, but not on the thing that gives ownership its power. And so the magic of ownership hasn't been demonstrated to people. And what's the magic of ownership? The magic of ownership is I can take my shit somewhere else. If I
interoperability, right?
Yeah, it's interoperability. If I own a dog that lives in my neighbor's garage, it's kind of silly, and that's what the rest of the world sees when they look at these Web3 communities who are super passionate about ownership, but they're like, but it doesn't mean anything. And so our mission is to give meaning to ownership by making it interoperable. And this thing we're doing here together is proving to the rest of the world that ownership means something. It's because these two things can come together and they can play together and everyone can win together. And when people start to realize the magic of that, then they won't want anything else. Once you go open, you never go back.
So go ahead, Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in layman's terms, like very, very, very basic, you're trying to make people, like you're trying to give people right now with NFTs something to do with them, right?
Yeah. But the something is that portability, right?
Right. And that's an interesting an interesting comparison to the Doodles team, because that's what they're trying to do as well. Yeah. Like they also recognize, like you're saying, like that sauce behind, like, why does somebody want to own this? Right? Yeah. Oh, I own it. Well, why do you want to own it?
Yeah.
And like you said, because I mean, right now, if you could use it everywhere, then you'd want it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of this, I mean, fundamental underpinning of like, well, where is the use case or value coming from? And
that is it.
but you guys don't say that like that because you guys are like on the space mission, right? And it's amazing of just how articulate you guys are about it. And I don't know, you guys are fucking gigabrains. I like you guys a lot.
But like you said, we're like essentially doing the same thing, and that's why I think this has been such a cool process working with the Doodles team and starting to get a vibe with the Doodles community, is because like everyone can see the end goal is a big win for us all, and we all want the same thing to happen. We're just, you know, we're doing our different parts of making that process a reality. Doodles is doing, you know, the cool stuff they're doing in their domain, we're doing cool stuff in our domain, and they can both come together and demonstrate to the world that openness wins.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, Liz.
Well, and I can just get on board with this. Tony's heard me say this more times than you probably count. Like, I've been kind of ringing the bell of like things you can do with your NFTs for years. I had like some stupid tweet that I made today that was like, I like dynamic digital identity on chain because Doodles 2 and like Sofamon. I was like, give me some wearables and give me something to do with them. Like, I love it. But so I'm on board with this. And
totally.
But I want to go back a little bit to something Alex was saying, because Alex mentioned Future Score, which caught my attention because I kind of dived into the world of Futureverse and everything that's surrounding it, and started to kind of pick up on things that were important. And it made me think about how ridiculous it must sound. I thought about it as a doodle trying to describe our ecosystem to somebody else. I was like, you know, if people are in the space and they're vaguely familiar, they're like, oh yeah, that's a doodle, right? But I was like, okay, so we got these duplicators, right? And then we got these Genesis boxes, right? Like, and so I think it would be really helpful for those, you know, doodles who are, you know, holding their Surrealscape land to maybe kind of have like a light glossary of like, what are some of the important terms? You know, what is Future Score? What is the mycelium? What are prisms? What are, you know, these kind of things, so that we can kind of better understand the universe and the important components of it.
Yeah, we just put a first post out today, so explaining a little bit more about how things are going to work in season 1, episode 1. And I think if you're online, Lenny, take notes. Let's get a glossary out so that people can start to get that kind of bigger picture. And we have kind of a similar problem, that there's a lot going on, you know, for people to understand. And I think the key takeaway from that is similar to my, you know, rainbow of user segments argument before, is those that take the time to delve in and understand all the bits, they'll have the advantage, but not everyone has to know. So this kind of idea that, you know, big projects like ours and yours have to explain everything to every people, I think is a flawed notion.
Right.
You know, only the pro users need to understand it all, and the other ones will be able to play the pro game. But heaps of people just need to understand one thing.
The alpha is there for the taking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, fair point. So yeah, everyone start looking for those terms. I think we posted the thread to the top. That's going to give you a little bit of insight into, you know, what Surrealscapes mean, how you can start mining resources. Really interesting stuff. Really cool.
The takeaway is read it.
Read
with your eyes. Read it.
Can someone make a video about? No. Hey, there's a market for that too. Hey, there's a market for everybody. You know, it's all good. Geez.
And actually, on that note, we do have a lot of incredible community content creators who have put out
we do
explainers on all these different components as well. So
no, that's amazing. And
a lot of the community there will be able to point you in the right direction as well.
Yeah, and you know, we heard from some of the community spaces hosts, earlier, and it's like, yeah, you know, if you are interested in learning more, tune into their space, dive down the rabbit hole a little bit, you know, and I'm sure you get tons of value from that. So like I said, I would encourage, follow everybody on stage right now, maybe some people in the audience too, you know.
100%.
Let's see here. So Tony, what are you thinking?
Maybe I think we could pivot towards the partnership side of things, so we can kind of dive specifically into what we're doing with with what happened with the most recent drop of Surrealscape's Rainbowtopia. I guess, but first, maybe before, we could just keep a little abstract for one quick second. So like you said, how everybody has their own area of focus. Like right now, maybe like Doodles is pushing on content, and physical goods and live experiences.
Yeah.
I know that so if you guys right now are leaning on the metaverse right now, do you foresee these partnerships being a way for existing communities to like lean into
Totally
initially gaming so they don't have to build their own games?
Yeah,
Or
I think that's one big
what's
thing
your
we can
pitch?
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, is if your community is got some people who are passionate about getting into those more immersive spaces or gaming things, we've got cool ways to bring your content to life inside of these environments, from something as simple as we've done with Third Kingdom up to something like we showed with the Apes Unleashed video last week. And so there's definitely that opportunity. We kind of we have the opportunity to collaborate with brands as well. So we're just about to put out this Reebok Impact product, which is an Instagram-based experience where you can choose your favorite memories in Instagram and turn them into a unique one-of-one digital sneaker.
Aaron dishing out some serious alpha.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I was like, record scratch. Did you just say you could turn your favorite Instagram memory into a one-of-one Reebok digital wearable?
Yeah. And so there's cool things you can do that, we can do those kinds of collaborations with brands and help like bring that content to life in different ways. And community, other communities, we could start to have conversations about how they can activate experiences and for their content in their communities. The live thing is, I think, an awesome thing that you guys are leaning into, and it's not an area we're touching. So, there's opportunities potentially the other way as well. I mean, that's the great thing about this space is that if you start to collaborate and see the bigger value of open and the fact that we're kind of fighting the same fight together, then we can show the world how this stuff shows up and how it's better than what exists today.
That's awesome. And hey, thanks for choosing the show to drop some serious alpha. I'm like, I think I saw some reactions going off. Everyone's like, oh, wait, what did he just?
And that's kind of more to the point about the metaverse can happen anywhere,
right.
know, people go where the fish are.
Well, yeah, and that's super interesting to hear that, like the Instagram integration there. Like, I'm sure that's not an easy thing to figure out how to do. So
no,
I'm very interested in that to see how that plays out. That's really, really cool. Wow. That's impressive. So you just mentioned Reebok, huge partnership there. Like how much kind of inbound are you getting, like interest from quote unquote Web2 brands? How much are you reaching out? Like, what does that look like for a company like you?
I think the really interesting thing is that despite the kind of bear market narrative and which is kind of clearly over for a certain part of the market, maybe not for NFTs yet, but I think through all of that, brands have been consistently engaging, and we get a huge amount of inbound. We've done another 2 or 3 major global brand deals even in the last month or so. And so inbound is strong. And what we're noticing is that people in those businesses are becoming more sophisticated. They kind of dipped their toes in the first run and figured out what didn't work a lot of the time. And now they've got people who understand it a lot better and are getting much more strategic about how they integrate this as a core part of their business as opposed to an experiment they run on the side.
So you mean buying beer.eth and tweeting about it was not sufficient exposure?
No, but I think like that's the general vibe we're getting now. Is it's much more strategic, they're much more sophisticated, and they're looking for much more sophisticated execution and partners that can play that role. That's definitely something we've noticed, whether it's in the content and IP domain or whether it's in the brand domain or sports franchise domain. They're all becoming much more strategic about it, which is really good for the space because it's going from something that was a cool marketing vibe into something that they're taking seriously as a component of their business strategy.
That
Lifts, I just want to make sure, I think you're a little tone deaf. It would have definitely been beer.root.
Ah,
I hope you.
We'll leave that to Shay, root naming service, that'll chestnut. No, okay, so sorry, the Reebok thing's still ringing in my head, but I think some of the other notable partnerships y'all have had, obviously Ready Player One, huge. FIFA, am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
What are maybe some of the other notable partnerships that you guys have worked with?
I think, I'm just trying to think.
Just tricking you into announcing
You're
something.
like check.
Yeah, no, that's right.
What
I
else?
think
What
most
else is
of
going
it
on?
now.
I mean, not as if FIFA, Ready Player One, and Reebok, and other brands weren't sufficient. Like anything else?
Yeah, we've done a really cool collaboration with the Muhammad Ali estate. We've just kind of starting to get out of the alpha stage of the Next Legends game, which is really fun AI powered boxing game using our altered state machine protocol. And the Next Legends by Muhammad Ali avatars. So that's a cool one.
That's a mouthful. Sorry, it's just like AI powered boxing game. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's 2024.
You can train.
I need to get.
You can train your. You play the role of a trainer in the game, and so what you're doing is you're training this NFT, which is a brain, and you put it inside a boxer, and then it goes and boxes against other AI boxers. You can kind of compete and train and rank up inside of that environment.
Is there betting?
We actually have a partner protocol who's building that layer of integration into the Root network. So there will be.
If there's boxing, there's betting.
Goodness gracious.
Well, there's also races. So you can races is like our carts game. So it's a really fun AI powered carts game. Similar kind of process. You pick a brain. You build a cart using our swappables engine. All the parts are kind of tradable and swappable. And then you go and race against others around these tracks. But you pay an entry fee, from small to kind of decent size, and that entry fee goes into a prize pool, and then whoever wins the race can win the prize pool. So there's some cool stuff you can do there. The other stuff, I think on the technology front, we've got some good partnerships announced with the likes of Alibaba. I was a keynote speaker up at their conference, the global conference, and one of the only kind of foreign companies speaking up there. Do a lot of the kind of AI training stuff with them on the generative side of things. We've got some great support from partners like Tencent on some other kind of cool stuff around streaming, intersection of streaming and gaming. There's a few unannounced tech partners that we'll probably get to towards the end of this year. So in the tech domain, there's some good stuff. In the brand stuff, you've covered a bunch of those, but we'll be announcing some more over the next couple of months. So stay tuned for that. And likewise on the IP side of things, as we work up to the launch of Open, there'll be a whole bunch more IP that we showcase from the studio side of things. So yeah, really exciting times.
That's incredible. That's incredible, the what you've been able to achieve, and you have such a large team to be able to facilitate that. I do want to kind of take a quick beat because we have our community members here, Futureverse, FLUF World, community members here have been so patiently hanging out on stage, and I think it'd be informative while we were kind of talking about Third Kingdom a little bit. One of the things that was noted is that when the Surrealscapes were dropped to Doodles, who were on space mission, there was a Discord channel opened up in the Doodles Discord, and the Futureverse community came out, and they were looking to buy. They were like, "Hey, they were like, hey, is anyone trying to sell their, Surrealscape? Hey, I'm looking." And so it was really funny. A lot of the Doodles were like, "Oh, this is great," and then for a moment they were like, "Why are they so eager to buy this land so quickly?" And so I think it'd be very informative to hear, and I'll kick it to the community members, maybe Shay first, because I know Shay brokered some OTC deals. I think it'd be informative to know, why are you so eager to buy the land? What does it mean to you? And I think that'd be really, really good info for our community.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's so funny. I definitely saw some of those messages where people were like, why are you guys so hungry for the land? Like, what's going on
Thirsty.
here? Yeah. And it was cool to see them get intrigued. And I think it was really cool for a lot of people who got multiple surrealscapes, like they traded some and then they're keeping one and they're finding the prisms and they want to get involved. And I love to see that because like you guys said at the beginning of the spaces, I think there's a lot of like kind of spiritual alignment in terms of both of the communities and the companies, just in terms of the sheer level of like depth and caliber at which things are being built. And so that was cool to see. I think we're a passionate community. For me, the reason that I wanted to get Spirited Surrealscapes is because part of my strategy for the Third Kingdom is diversification of biomes. And so I kind of want at least one of each surrealscape, one of each industry sort of a thing. So everyone's kind of got a different strategy, but and honestly, like the Doodles land is like my favorite, like from an aesthetic point of view. The Shroom Fields would be second. So I fell in love with land, and then I had to get some. But yeah, we're maxis, and we love the land, and we had to get some. So
hey, we love it, and we relate.
It's like Pokemon, right? You got to collect them all. But I think like the cool thing about the game kind of play is in this simulation strategy is optimizing the different kinds of resources. So the traits of the land versus the traits of the prisons versus some of the collectibles you have will all play a role in optimizing your strategy for kind of winning and leveling up. And so there'll be people who have one thing and not another thing, and they'll want to trade it. And I think that's going to be, it's already creating some exciting buzz amongst the community and people producing data tools to figure out the best way to optimize. It's quite fun to see.
The Doodles I feel like they're just starting to get their feet wet with this kind of stuff. With Space Mission, everyone was reading the tweets and like, okay, if I launch one Doodle and have 3 duplicators, that's 47 mile. Like, and so then when this dropped, everyone's like, okay, hold on, let's lock in. We need to know what kind of resources.
It's actually super cool to see, especially the creative content and those like data analytics coming out, because that kind of is doing a service for the community, but it's also kind of previewing the fact that this will be a fun thing to do because there is that depth to it.
100%.
So as it stands right now, so if you have land, can you play on it yet, or what's the timeline looking like?
Yeah, so the target timeline for season 1, episode 1 was about 3 months from last week or the week before. So not too far now to go to get the first play, and then we'll launch a couple of episodes and more episodes in that season that kind of bring in new elements each time, and then look towards season 2. We're trying to do this in kind of an iterative approach for 2 reasons. One is to get a feedback on how people are engaging with it, and build on top of that, like we always do. And 2 is that because it's creating this underlying material world, learning in these kind of episodic events about how to fine tune that to get a kind of more robust protocol out the back of it is a big part of it.
That's really interesting you say that, because Doodles, got a little bit of, dare I say, FUD? Dare I say, when they launched their wearables ecosystem with Genesis boxes and duplication, things like that, they launched this wearables collections with quote unquote nothing to do with them yet. And there was
come on, guys, make it do something.
And people were discussing like they had to kind of seed the economy first, like And so hearing you talk about like creating resources and quote unquote minerals, whatever else you want to call it, before there's a quote unquote game to use them in. I hear a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, and also like now that we have like a portfolio of experiences ourselves, we can start to bootstrap that too. So when we think about the Readyverse launcher, I might post a video later this week to show everyone what that looks like. See how we go. But you know, we've got these kind of base experiences that we can start to show how these things interoperate with each other. And if you think about Third Kingdom as laying a ground layer for resources that might appear in Open, the AAA competitive game, for example, we can create those links ourselves. So we can prove it works and then give other people the blueprint that they can follow and start to kind of build on top of.
Very cool. Very cool. I want to kick it over to either, you know, I'm just looking at the screen here. Let's kick it over to Tybo. Tybo, have you acquired any Doodles Surrealscapes yet? If so, why not? No, I'm just kidding. But have you?
I've been buying them on this call.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? Okay, well, okay, we'll get back to that. I want to go to Tybo, and then we'll get back to that. So, Tybo, any interaction with the Doodles Surrealscape so far?
Yeah, I bought, I think, 3 or 4 so far from a few of the community members.
And what was your reasoning there?
So there's a few reasons. I guess the other partner community members don't want to sell them. So I was like, okay. But you guys were the first community that really were open to trading and opening to claiming them in a meaningful way. And some people just didn't really want to deal with the game, just wanted some liquidity, and I was happy to be the man on the other side. But the main reason is we got these prisms minted, and we got a bunch of what's called spirited prisms, and they match with the land. And you know, I like to min-max everything, so I want to maximize the prisms I have. So buying the land and syncing it together will optimize my strategy. And I just think they look really cool as well. They're probably my favorite looking land out of all the rest. So just the appeal. And you know, I think that I don't know if we've gone too deep into the material world. I don't know what the Rainbowtopia is going to offer that's unique to the Doodles ecosystem one day. Like, because you know, when we talk about the open metaverse, the idea of like, you know, an NFT being part of the Third Kingdom is cool, but what if Doodles wanted to build an experience where anyone that holds the Rainbowtopia land can get access to a unique Doodle experience that, you know, that the Doodles team creates? And that's what the kind of idea of like making the NFTs interoperable is, that it becomes beyond just one experience. And if I can get exposure to the Doodles ecosystem through the land, that's kind of how I'm, you know, playing it as well.
Oh, it works in
That's
reverse.
a cool one.
Oh my gosh. Well, no, and this would not be the first time, and this is beyond conjecture. This is beyond speculation. But it would not be the first time that, you know, people have done, like, I think Proof has done stuff like this, like a series of drops, and they, you know, rewarded people who didn't sell any of the drop. I'm just saying, like, you can assign meaning to any kind of meaningful behavior like that. So Tybo, really cool.
Future Score is like kind of a cool system for doing that. Like, you get rewarded for what you hold, the rarity of what you hold, how long you've held it for, what you do with it. And so there's so many different layers to kind of creating that holder engagement and rewarding people for different things at different moments off that same base system.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And before we go to Buildo, Aaron, you said you've been buying lands, which reminded me. So I heard a little bit about some kind of marketplace. How are you buying them? Are you marketplacing OTC? What are you up to?
Yeah, I buy them on Mark, which is a marketplace on Root. There's a few starting to integrate and come online now, but this was the first one. So I just jump on there and find stuff that matches the traits that I'm interested in from my prisms. And keep in mind, I have no idea exactly how they match up either. I don't get into that level of detail. So I'm I'm flying almost as blind as everyone else in this respect. But I definitely had some spirited prisms, so I had to go and grab some more Doodles land to put them on.
Nice. All right. So Marketplace. Say that 10 times fast. But so for those looking to buy some more lands, that's where you're looking. And I want to kick it over to Buildo. So Buildo, any exposure to Rainbowtopia land so far? Purchase anything like that?
Rainbowtopia is the only one that I do not have. I did some deals for some of the Cool Cat lands, as there are some other partners. Have some friends in the Deadfellas community that I was able to acquire some land from them. So I am in the market to be able to do it. It's also kind of a management of how much land do I want based on how many prisons I have. But it's been a fun way for the community to kind of come together. I mean, before the spaces and after the spaces, I'm working deals of, I have this particular land, you have the prisons that I need, I have prisons that you need, let's go ahead and swap. So it's brought a cool camaraderie between not only our community, but also reaching out to, people in the Cool Cats of, hey, my Cool Cat land I think is maximized, but I have some extra Cool Cat prisms that might match your land well. Do you have maybe some prisms that might match mine? So it's been a cool way to kind of bring a lot of the different communities together. And I'm excited and I appreciate the opportunity to get to know the Doodles community. Big shout out to Dude Lifts, who kind of, at least organized me getting up on here. So I appreciate it. And I am in the market if any of you guys are willing to sell.
Awesome. Well, and you brought up something really fascinating there is you're like Cool Cats land, Deadfellas land. We're getting to a point where there's a lot of crossover between, Doodles, Cool Cats, Deadfellas. We love Klon and his art, so what Syke and Betty are up to with Deadfellas. So I'm like, if I enjoy Deadfellas, Cool Cats, I don't have to, if I already own a Cool Cat or a Deadfella, or I just want another NFT in their quote unquote ecosystem, now I can be looking at Third Kingdom land, which is an asset of those ecosystems, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that's the neat thing about this is that it's starting to like cross-pollinate those communities, and find the common ground like Alex was talking about earlier, and we're seeing people buy Doodles from our community or Cool Cats or Deadfellas and start to kind of participate in that open vibe. I think that's something that people maybe in the space have been hesitant to do because it kind of, like I said, that tendency to like protect your own patch. But showing the magic of openness, I think, makes everybody in this space win. And it's the thing that in my mind will turn, the NFT market around, is really showing that magic. Every great run in terms of products has been driven by a magic moment that shows people what's unique and different, even if it's a bit clunky to start off with. If it's unique and different and valuable, that is what makes a great product. And we're just on the cusp, I think, of showing why ownership matters and how that is a magic experience that isn't the same as what you get somewhere else.
Well, and I think that, not to get too into the weeds, that's, I shouldn't even say that at this point. We're there. But, a lot of people, would many months ago, years ago, maybe even now, it would scream dilution. You know what I mean? Too many NFTs. And when they saw what happened with Yuga Labs, and Yuga Labs is actively kind of cleaving the fat at this point. But I don't want to kind of speak in absolutes here, but Doodles is in particular making a point of saying, hey, we have this really strong IP. We think it can exist in different entertainment, gaming spaces. And because of its strength, like, doesn't feel dilutive, if that makes sense. Like having a Rainbowtopia land in FLUFverse isn't like, oh no, another Doodles NFT. Like, it just doesn't feel like that. It feels like a natural extension. It feels like our universe existing somewhere else. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. But.
And that's like, it's kind of a parallel conversation we have with brands sometimes, because it's interesting that people in Web3 think that way, but also brands tend to think that way sometimes. And you're like, well, we want to contain things in our thing, and why would we let it go somewhere else? And what if our brand kind of interacts with another brand? And I'm like, well, but that's the real world. I can wear a Reebok pump shoe and a Nike t-shirt, and that's cool, and it's good for you because I'm buying your shoes. And so the fact that like these mono environments or kind of mono cultures are something that we try and create is kind of anti to what actually happens in the real world. And everyone can win in an environment where these things can cross-pollinate, because I might have never seen your community before if I hadn't touched it over here. If you're wearing a Doodles wearable in one of our games or applications, and they're like, that's dope, how do I get one of those? Oh, that's over there, that's in that community. And so the more that openness can happen, I think the more that those moments and opportunities for people to discover what you're doing and who you are, and that's all additive to the core value proposition. And the great thing about Web3 is that you can have both. It's that little meme, why not have both? You can have individual...
the guy with the two buttons.
Yeah, it totally is. You can have individual rarity and status. You're one of the OGs. You've got this rare trait, it's a special trait that people have community lore built up around, and you can have everyone participate in your ecosystem. Those two things can exist harmoniously because of digital scarcity.
Interestingly, going back to Tony's point about, what was it, art reflecting society, I'm like, you say, yeah, I can wear my t-shirt anywhere. I'm like, yeah, as people or regulars on the show know, I'm wearing my Doodles merch to Disney every time, and no one can stop me.
Yeah, and literally we have that exact example. Like, Disney doesn't stop you at the gates if you're wearing a Warner Brothers t-shirt.
Totally.
Those things can exist in the same world,
They do. Yeah, they just do exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
So just to add on to that real quickly, in terms of your question of why we want the Surrealscapes or why we're participating, Aaron kind of has this philosophy where he always says play the game. I don't know if I'm butchering that, Aaron, but I think you say that a lot. Go ahead if you want to elaborate on what that
No, you go. I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. And it's funny because I hadn't really thought about it until you guys posed this question, but yeah, I think playing the game, our community we just want to play the game, and we want to show up, and we are so excited to participate. And I think there's a lot of synergies with Doodles too, because of the space experiences and things that you guys have. You guys want to play the game too, and so I think that's why it's almost like involuntary, where it's no matter what we have going on in our lives, we are gonna show up and play the game. So
yeah, I love that idea, you were talking about how DeFi is just a game of finance, or it's just I feel like I need to study game theory now, because I need to know what the finite games are and how they're being applied as archetypes to other
We need to rewatch A Beautiful Mind, learn about John Nash, study game theory, become experts.
And that's the thing, is the meta of the Third Kingdom has already begun. The game has already begun with all of this trading, even though the game isn't live yet,
Are you saying that the Futureverse Discord channel inside the Doodles Discord is an arena of gaming? It's already happening.
It's already happening.
Oh my gosh. No, and that's fascinating, because that goes
in a way it is.
No, 100%. It goes back to the thing
they're like, we made it.
No, and it goes back to the thing that Aaron, you're saying in the very beginning, the quote unquote, we're already in the metaverse, right? We're already in the game. I saw something fascinating, and I think I retweeted it earlier today. It was Jesse Pollock from Base, or from Coinbase. And he was like, can we stop calling them meme coins and start just calling them memes? They're just being proliferated via tokens on chain. And I was finally someone said it. Because meme coins get a bad rap, or shit coins, whatever you want to call them, and everyone's like, oh, I just can't stand sitting in this casino anymore. And I'm like, maybe you could think about it a little bit differently. Sure, some people are gambling, some people are casino, but we're proliferating memes on chain the same way that people were posting Pepe in forums 5 or 10 years ago.
I've called crypto the liquid attention economy for so many years now, because that's literally what it is. And it's not just a reflection on crypto culture, it's actually a reflection on society as a whole, because I don't know who, maybe it was Musk or someone, own the meme, own the world, and that's really the world we live in now. And the more, the further we progress down the path that we're on, particularly with this world of generative content, those memes are going to move so fast, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. But one thing that crypto's nailed is monetization of memes, which I think is going to be a much bigger part of the future economy than people realize. putting the futurist hat on and looking at how society evolves when there is more automation, through AI and robotics. People are living longer lives through, better healthcare derived from these systems and stuff like that. The meme economy is going to be the economy, and it kind of already is, to a certain extent. All money is a meme.
Well, it's not too different, when I was growing up, not that long ago. But the savvy stockbrokers were like, I sit there and I watch and see what the kids are wearing on their shoes, and that's how I know which stocks to buy. I'm like, my brother in crypto, that's a meme coin.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. A meme
Nike's
coin.
a meme coin. You know what I mean? Like, it's culture.
Every stock is a meme coin, and the fact that, crypto is kind of taken that to a much more literal sense, I don't think is an aberration. I think it's just the way society is evolving.
It's just the way it is. Rest in peace, Tupac.
But I like to play the game.
I
like that mantra. That's fascinating. It's a good lens. I like it a lot. So
I think it'll catch on.
Yeah, thanks.
It'll catch on, kids.
We're early. Oh my gosh. Super fun. And, I know we've been running for probably like almost an hour and 40 minutes. I feel like that, there's so much more we could talk about, but I almost feel like that is a good point to kind of conclude on in the way of play the game. If you're interested in finding out more about, Futureverse, Open, Readyverse, Fluff World, play the game, find out more, join the Discords, listen to the spaces, do the things that we do, and have fun doing it.
Totally.
Awesome. Tony, any parting words?
All I can say is I'm really glad that whoever in the Doodles team brokered this collaboration, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I am getting excited about it personally, and I don't think it's nearly as complicated to get started as people have made it out to be. If you aren't in space, launch your Doodle to space. If you are and you have land, maybe learn a little bit about it before you just floor it in GTFO, because there is probably more in store based on like the level
definitely more in store
attention to detail that you guys have going on right here. I'm definitely not going to mid-curve this.
But if you do floor it, I'm here to buy it. So
there it is. We knew it. We knew you wanted our land. So no, amazing.
The whale needs some krill. But yeah, guys, Shay, gosh, everybody here, I really am like excited. I'm like, how I need to find out like when your shows are and how I'm going to like integrate them into my life.
Likewise.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're really excited. We're still fleshing out a consistent day and time for Root Radio, but Buildo Space is Thursdays at 5 p.m. EST. But no, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having us, and just really good vibes, and looking forward to more of it.
Yeah, Tybo, you want to plug anything? Go for it. Anybody. Free quiche.
Yeah, come have a most excellent adventure on Bill and Geck's Excellent Adventure. Again, it's geared towards a lot of people that don't necessarily have all of the in-depth knowledge about Futureverse and are coming to learn kind of what all is being built and how they can participate, walk people through creating future paths, and kind of onboarded a few people last week. So I encourage anybody that has more questions. It's an open space. Feel free to come up, ask questions. We're all here to learn together. I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for Shay and Tybo and a few other community members that have really helped me along my journey. I was lucky enough or blessed enough for Captain to change my life, and he gifted me my first FLUF, and then I just completely whaled into everything. So yeah, I've been blessed. So I'm just trying to be able to give back to the community as so many have given back to me already. So yeah, join us every Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern.
Amazing. And I'll say in reverse to anybody from y'all's community, we have a couple spaces every week. Ours is Monday night. the time is going to be potentially changing in the near future based on some schedule changes, but probably Monday night, and maybe we'll have some more. Who knows? And every Saturday morning as well. So there's 8270 and Pocky host Dude Morning. I believe that's 10 a.m. EST. Tony, does that sound right?
Yeah, give or take. It's like around 9 or 10.
Yeah, so they're vibing. They're talking about hobbies. They're talking about trading cards, whatever is their fancy. So yeah, if you want to kind of get involved with the Doodles ecosystem, check those shows out. And there's
Ippy's Alpha Hour.
Ippy's
Yeah,
Alpha
I mean,
Hour.
So
tons and tons of stuff. I will say, last but not least, Alex, Aaron, thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with us. And I mean, blowing our minds, opening our, chakras to the open metaverse. It was really, really amazing.
No, thank you guys for having us on and being so welcoming, and always happy to engage on X if anyone wants to shout a question out. We've got a super great community. If you're in the Discord, they'll help you with anything and give you all the lowdown on what's known and speculate on what's unknown. I think we just had Surreal Escapes go live for Future Score. So if you're out there, check your wallets. Your score should be improving. And if you're new to Futureverse and you haven't got your Doodles Rainbowtopia yet, go and grab that and check out your score in Future Pass, because that will unlock future rewards even before the game starts.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, see Tony's latest tweet from TGID. If you are a Doodle and you want to know exactly how to claim your land, he spelled it out perfectly. So awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been Ink Tank number 38, Doodles times Fluff World, Futureverse, and beyond. Rainbowtopia, signing off.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Burry's in the crowd. You got to do your thing, Lifts.
Oh, Burry,
he just got a rainbow puker. Did you see?
No, that's what he was. Oh, he was like, I saw him like selling his entire bag, and I was like, Burry, what's up, dude? Amazing. I'll have to check that out. Oh, so for Burry, of course, and let this go beyond the Doodles, maybe for everyone in Web3, maybe this is the spirit of what we're talking about here. Think not of what Doodles can do for you, but what can you do for Doodles?
Great. Love it.
Oh.